Police detained more than 2,000 people at anti-war demonstrations held in cities across Russia on Sunday, a protest monitoring group said, as people defied the authorities to show their anger over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Key points: anti-war protests have been held in cities across the country since Thursday. Anti-war protests have been held in cities across the country since Thursday. Australians in Russia have been warned to avoid demonstrations and to consider leaving the country. Australians in Russia have been warned to avoid demonstrations and to consider leaving the country. Long queues have been forming at Russian ATMs amid reports non-Russian cards are being declined. More than 5,800 people have been detained at various anti-war protests since the invasion began on Thursday, according to the OVD Info Monitor, which has documented crackdowns on Russia's opposition for years. On Sunday evening local time, OVD Info said at least 2,667 people had been arrested in the day's protests in 67 cities. In Moscow, riot police often outnumbered protesters, some of whom carried handwritten placards with peace signs and anti-war slogans in Russian and Ukrainian. Some wore masks with the word "enough" emblazoned in the front. Protests have been staged across the country, with more than 5,800 demonstrators arrested since Thursday. AP, Dmitry Lovetsky, a reporter for the independent television channel Dozd, was arrested during the protests, despite showing his accreditation to the police and wearing a press vest. Outside the upmarket Gostinny Dvor department store in downtown St. Petersburg, hundreds of anti-war protesters stood together, linking arms and chanting. Australians in Russia warned to avoid demonstrations. Russia is listed as a "do not travel" country on the federal government's Smart Traveller website, with Australians warned to steer clear of the protests. If you're in Russia, consider leaving by commercial or private means if it's safe to do so, the website said. The security situation could deteriorate further with little warning. Smart Traveller warns there are reports train services from St. Petersburg to Helsinki have been limited to Russian and Finnish citizens only. Those Australians who choose to remain in Russia are being told to have their travel documents up to date. If you decide to stay in Russia, review your personal security plans. You're responsible for your own safety and that of your family, the website said. Protesters wrote anti-war messages across their face masks as they turned out in St. Petersburg. AP, Dmitry Lovetsky. U.S. citizens urged to leave Russia now. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow urged American citizens in Russia to think about leaving the country immediately on Sunday, as some airlines halted flights there and some countries closed their skies to Russian aircraft. U.S. citizens should consider departing Russia immediately via commercial options still available, the embassy said in a statement on its website. U.S. officials in recent weeks have urged Americans not to travel to Russia and warned that the U.S. government could not help in any evacuation of Americans from there. An earlier alert recommended Americans develop contingency plans about how to leave the country if necessary. The European Union was among those announcing Sunday they were closing their airspace to Russian flights. Long queues at ATMs. Russia's economy has taken a pounding since the invasion, with the ruble plunging, the central bank calling for calm to avoid bank runs, and long lines forming at ATMs. Smart Traveller warned Australians of reports that non-Russian credit and debit cards were being declined in Russia, urging Australians to be prepared to use other methods of payment. The US, European Union and Britain also agreed to block selected Russian banks from the SWIFT system, which moves money around thousands of banks and other financial institutions worldwide. They also moved to slap restrictions on Russia's central bank. Protest coincides with anniversary of Nemtsov. Sunday's protests coincided with the 7th anniversary of the opposition politician Boris Nemtsov. In Moscow, some of the arrests took place at an improvised memorial just outside the Kremlin at the site where Mr. Nemtsov was shot, a witness said. One demonstrator shouted, "No to war," as he was being dragged away by the police. Mr. Nemtsov was a prominent critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin, Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, and Moscow's support for pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. Ukraine's Western allies have slapped unprecedented sanctions in response to Russia's land, sea, and air invasion. Mr. Putin ordered his military command to put nuclear-armed forces on high alert on Sunday, as Ukrainian fighters defending the city of Kharkiv said they had repelled an attack by invading Russian troops. Tens of thousands of people across Europe marched in protest against Russia's invasion on Sunday, with 100,000 people protesting in Berlin. Loading. ABC.